The silent vote. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, a massive ring of metal and glass where representatives from 73 different species gathered to decide the fate of the galaxy. The hall had stood for 12,000 years. Empires had risen and fallen. Stars had been born and died. But the council remained, eternal and unchanging. Humanity had been part of this council for only 40 years. In the long history of galactic civilization, this was nothing. A blink of an eye. A single breath. The older species looked at humans the way a grandfather might look at a child trying to sit at the adult table during a family dinner. Admiral Daniel Carter stood at the back of the human section, his hands clasped behind his back. He was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short in military fashion and deep lines around his eyes. He had spent 30 years serving humanity among the stars, and he had learned to keep his face still when the aliens spoke. Showing emotion was seen as weakness here. Not Ambassador Lisa Morgan sat in the front row of the human delegation. She was a small woman with brown hair and sharp eyes. She had been the voice of humanity in this hall for 15 years. She had smiled through insults. She had stayed calm through mockery. She had crafted careful arguments and presented them with perfect diplomacy. And every single time, the answer had been the same. Speaker Varath of the Calvani stood at the central podium. The Calvani were one of the founding species of the council. They had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on their long faces, and their skin was the color of old bronze. Varath had held his position for 200 years. He would likely hold it for 200 more. The Council has reviewed humanity's request for a permanent seat on the Security Directorate, Varath announced. His voice was translated instantly into every language in the hall. After careful consideration, we have determined that this request is premature. Lisa did not move. Daniel watched her carefully. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her breathing was steady. Humanity has made significant contributions to galactic society, Varath continued. This cannot be denied. Your medical advances have been particularly noteworthy. Your engineering solutions have proven useful on many worlds. However, 40 years of participation does not qualify a species for the responsibilities of the Security Directorate. A soft murmur of agreement rippled through the hall. Daniel saw the Zasari delegates nodding their large heads. He saw the Morvani representatives clicking their claws in approval. He saw a species that humanity had helped, species that humanity had saved, all nodding along with the words. Perhaps in another century, Varath said. And there was something in his tone that sounded almost kind. The way someone might be kind to a slow child. Humanity will have demonstrated the maturity required for such a role. Until then, we encourage you to continue learning from your elder partners in this great galactic community. This was the 6th time humanity had made this request. The 6th time in 10 years. And 6 times, the answer had been the same polite rejection. The same gentle reminder that humans were young. The same suggestion that they should be grateful for whatever scraps the council chose to give them. Lisa turned in her seat and looked at her aide, a young man named Kevin Brooks. Kevin was 28 years old, fresh from the diplomatic academy, still believing that the right words could change minds. Call the shuttle, Lisa said quietly. Kevin blinked. Ambassador? We are leaving. Call the shuttle now. Kevin pulled out his communication device with shaking hands. Daniel felt something shift in his chest. He had known Lisa for 20 years. He had never seen her leave a session early. Lisa stood. She gathered the documents from her desk and placed them in her bag. She did not hurry. She did not rush. She simply collected her things the way someone might at the end of a normal workday. One by one, the other human delegates stood as well. They looked at each other with questions in their eyes, but no one spoke. They simply followed Lisa's lead, gathering their belongings and moving toward the exit. The hall fell silent. 72 species watched as the humans walked between the rows of seats, heading for the great doors at the back of the chamber. "Ambassador Morgan," Morith called out. There was confusion in his voice now. This had never happened before. No species had ever simply walked out of a council session. The proceedings are not concluded. There are other matters to discuss. Lisa stopped at the door. The entire human delegation stopped with her. Daniel watched her face as she turned to look back at the assembled aliens. Vorath waited for her response. The Thazari waited. The Morvani waited. The Kelvani council members leaned forward in their seats, expecting an explanation. Perhaps she would make a speech. Perhaps she would issue a protest. Perhaps she would demand something. Lisa looked at them. Her face showed nothing. No anger, no sadness, no frustration. Just a calm, empty stillness. She turned back to the door. She walked through it without a word. The rest of the human delegation followed. Daniel was the last one out. He paused for just a moment at the threshold and looked back at the great hall. He saw the confusion on alien faces. He saw Vorath standing at the podium with his mouth open, struggling to understand what had just happened. Daniel felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt light. He felt free. For 30 years, he had swallowed his pride and smiled through the contempt. For 30 years, he had told himself that patience would win. That eventually, humanity would earn respect. But you cannot earn something from people who have already decided you are worthless. The door closed behind him. The sound echoed through the silent hall. On the shuttle back to Earth, no one spoke. Lisa sat by the window, looking out at the stars. Kevin sat across from her, his young face full of worry. "Ambassador," he finally said, "what do we tell them? What is our official position?" Lisa did not look away from the stars. "We have no official position, but they will want a statement. They will want to negotiate. They will want to understand why we left." Lisa smiled then. It was a small smile, sad and tired and strangely peaceful. "Let them wonder," she said. Back in the great hall, the council session continued without the humans. But something had changed. Something had broken. The older species told themselves it did not matter. Humans were young. Humans were emotional. Humans would return with apologies and explanations. They did not understand what had really happened. They did not understand that humanity had not left in anger. They did not understand that humanity had simply stopped caring, and that was far more dangerous than any weapon ever built. 3 months passed after the humans walked out of the council chamber. At first, no one noticed anything different. The galaxy was vast. Trade routes stretched across thousands of light years. A single delegation leaving a single meeting was a small thing. But small things can grow. On the Kelvani homeworld, a hospital administrator named Dreth noticed that his supply shipment was late. Human cargo ships usually arrived every 2 weeks, carrying medical compounds that could not be made anywhere else in the galaxy. Earth's strange biology, its millions of years of evolution and isolation, had produced chemicals that worked wonders on alien bodies. Dreth sent a message to the human trading company. He received no response. He sent another message. Nothing. He contacted the Galactic Trade Authority and filed a complaint. A junior clerk told him that the human shipping company had canceled all contracts. "Canceled?" Dreth asked. "What do you mean canceled?" "They did not give a reason," the clerk said. "They simply stopped." Dreth stared at his empty supply shelves. He had 600 patients who needed human medicine to survive. He had enough supplies for maybe 2 months. He sent another message to the humans. He begged. He offered more money. He offered anything they wanted. The silence was his only answer. On the frontier world of Thesser 7, Commander Nathan Price stood in the command center of the human military base. He was a tall man with dark skin and calm eyes. He had served on this world for 5 years, protecting the local Thessari population from the Kreth raiders who attacked from the outer systems. The message from Earth Command was short and clear. All human personnel were to withdraw. All human equipment was to be removed. All human technology was to be disabled or taken. Nothing would be left behind. Nathan read the orders 3 times. Then he called his crew together in the mess hall. Lieutenant Megan Harris was the first to speak. She was young, only 25, with red hair tied back and a practical nod. "Sir, this has to be a mistake. The Thessari depend on our defense grid. Without it, they cannot protect themselves from the Kreth." "It is not a mistake," Nathan said. "But we built that grid together with them. We trained them. We made promises." Nathan thought about the promises that had been made. He thought about the 17 human colonists who had died last year when Kreth raiders attacked the farming settlement. He thought about how humanity had asked the Council for permission to strike back at the Kreth bases. He thought about how the Thessari delegates had voted against it, saying that humans were too aggressive, too violent, too young to be trusted with military decisions. 17 humans had died, and the Council had called it a minor incident. "Pack everything," Nathan said. "We leave in 48 hours. Should we warn them?" Megan asked. Her voice was quiet now. "Should we at least tell the Thessari what is coming?" Nathan looked at her for a long moment. He remembered the Thessari governor who had stood at the funeral for those 17 colonists. The governor had expressed sympathy. The governor had promised that justice would be done. And then the governor had gone to the council and voted against humanity. "No warnings," Nathan said. "We simply leave." Across 100 star systems, the same story repeated. Human engineers who had spent years building power plants and communication networks quietly shut down their projects and went home. Human doctors who had treated millions of alien patients closed their clinics and walked away. Human teachers who had shared knowledge freely packed their books and disappeared. No one made speeches. No one issued statements. No one demanded anything. They just stopped. The Galactic Council sent 17 formal inquiries to Earth's government. Each inquiry asked for an explanation. Each inquiry demanded a meeting. Each inquiry reminded humanity of its obligations under galactic law. Earth's government acknowledged each message. A simple reply was sent back. Message received. Nothing more. Nothing less. In the council chamber, confusion turned to annoyance. Annoyance turned to anger. How dare these humans behave this way? How dare they ignore the council? Did they not understand their place in the galaxy? Speaker Varath called an emergency session. He stood at the same podium where he had rejected humanity's request 3 months earlier. "This behavior is unacceptable," he declared. "Humanity has responsibilities. Humanity has contracts. Humanity cannot simply withdraw from galactic society because their feelings were hurt." The delegates murmured agreement. Of course, the humans were being childish. Of course, they were overreacting. They were a young species. They did not understand how things worked. But Councillor Urath of the Movani did not join the murmuring. She sat in her seat, her forearms crossed over her chest, her dark eyes fixed on the empty human section. Urath had studied humans for decades. She had visited Earth 3 times. She had read their history and their literature. She understood something that Varath and the others did not. Humans were not leaving because their feelings were hurt. Humans were leaving because they had finally realized a simple truth. They did not need the council. They had never needed the council. They had joined because they wanted to be part of something larger. They had stayed because they hoped to earn respect. They had given freely because they believed in cooperation. But now they understood. The council did not want partners. The council wanted servants. The council wanted a young species that would share its gifts and accept its low position without complaint. And humans were not built that way. Wrath stood up. The chamber fell silent. "Speaker Vorath," she said, "I suggest we consider the possibility that we have made a serious mistake." Vorath looked at her with his 4 eyes. "Explain." "For 40 years, we have treated humanity as children. We have taken their medicine, their technology, their knowledge. We have used their soldiers to defend our borders. And in return, we have given them nothing but contempt." "They are young," Vorath said. "They needed guidance. They needed respect," Urath replied. "And we never gave it. Now they are gone, and I fear we will soon learn exactly how much we depended on them." Vorath waved one of his long hands dismissively. "They will return. Where else can they go? The galaxy is vast and dangerous. They need us." Urath looked at the empty human seats one more time. "I hope you are right," she said quietly. "But I do not think you are." She was right. The humans did not return, and the galaxy began to learn what their absence truly meant. 1 year after the humans walked away, the first crisis hit. It started on a small colony world called Ventress 4. The planet had been settled by the Morvani 300 years ago. It was a farming world, quiet and peaceful, known for producing grain that fed a dozen other systems. But the machines that harvested the grain were breaking down. They had been built with human engineering assistance. They used human-designed parts. And now those parts were wearing out, and there was no one to replace them. The Morvani engineers tried to fix the machines themselves. They studied the designs. They attempted to build new parts. But human engineering was strange. It was creative in ways that alien minds did not naturally think. The parts they built did not work. The harvest that year was only 60% of normal. 12 star systems that depended on Ventress 4 grain began to experience food shortages. On the Kelvani homeworld, the situation was worse. The human medicine that kept millions of elderly Calvani alive was running out. Hospital Administrator Dreth had stretched his supplies as far as they could go. He had rationed. He had prioritized. He had made terrible choices about who would receive treatment and who would not. Now the medicine was gone. In the first month, 3,000 Calvani died. In the second month, the number was 8,000. By the end of the year, the death toll reached 100,000. The Council demanded answers. They sent ships to human space. They tried to establish contact. But the human borders were closed. Ships that approached too close were warned away by automated systems. Those that did not turn back simply vanished from sensors. No one knew what the humans were doing. No one knew what they were building. No one knew what they were planning. And that silence was more frightening than any threat could have been. On Earth, life continued as if nothing had happened. Professor Amy Patterson walked through the halls of the Global Science Institute in Geneva. She was 53 years old, with gray hair pulled back in a simple style and glasses perched on her nose. She had spent 20 years sharing human knowledge with the galaxy. She had trained alien scientists. She had published papers that were read on 1,000 worlds. Now she worked only for humanity. Her assistant, Greg Miller, caught up with her in the hallway. He was a young researcher, bright and eager, still adjusting to the new reality. "Professor, we have received another request from the Kelvani Science Academy," he said. "They are offering significant resources in exchange for our medical research." Amy kept walking. "File it with the others." "But Professor, people are dying. Thousands of them. Maybe hundreds of thousands by now. Amy stopped. She turned to face Greg, and her expression was not angry. It was tired. It was sad. But it was also firm. Greg, do you know how many times I asked the Calvani to collaborate with us? Do you know how many proposals I sent them? How many joint research projects I suggested? Greg shook his head. 47 times. Over 15 years. And every single time, they told me that human science was too primitive. They told me we had nothing to offer that they could not figure out themselves. They took our medicine because it worked, but they never respected the minds that created it. She started walking again. Now they want our help. Now they are willing to offer resources. Now they see value in what we do. But where was that respect when we asked for it? Where was that cooperation when we needed it? Greg followed her. So we just let them die? Is that who we are now? Amy stopped at her office door. She looked at Greg for a long moment. We are not letting anyone die. We are simply no longer responsible for them. For 40 years, we carried burdens that were not ours to carry. We saved lives that no one thanked us for saving. We built things that no one appreciated. We gave and gave and gave, and they took everything and told us we were not good enough. She opened her door. Now we give to ourselves. We build for ourselves. We save our own people. And if that makes us selfish, then perhaps we have earned the right to be selfish. The door closed behind her. Across human space, a new era was beginning. Ships that once carried goods to alien markets now explored uncharted regions. Scientists who once shared their discoveries freely now worked on projects that only humans would see. Soldiers who once defended alien worlds now built defenses around human colonies. The economy flourished. Without the need to produce goods for ungrateful aliens, human industry focused on human needs. Housing was built. Infrastructure was improved. Education expanded. Healthcare became universal. For the first time in 40 years, humanity was not trying to prove itself to anyone. And they discovered something remarkable. They were happier. Commander Nathan Price, who had withdrawn his forces from Lesser 7, now commanded a research station on the edge of explored space. He spent his days mapping new star systems and cataloging new worlds. One evening, he sat in the observation lounge with Lieutenant Megan Harris. She had stayed with his crew after the withdrawal. She had struggled with the decision at first, but time had changed her perspective. "Do you ever wonder what happened to the Thesari?" she asked. Nathan nodded. "Sometimes. Do you regret leaving?" Nathan thought about the question carefully. He remembered the fear in the eyes of the Thesari governor when he announced the withdrawal. He remembered the desperate pleas for reconsideration. He remembered walking away without looking back. "I regret that it was necessary," he said finally. "But I do not regret doing it." "Why not?" Nathan looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the darkness, the Thesari were fighting for survival. Somewhere out there, the Calvani were watching their elders die. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning what it meant to live without human help. "Because we spent 40 years trying to be good allies," he said. "We defended their worlds. We healed their sick. We built their machines. And they repaid us with contempt. They told us we were children. They told us we were primitive. They told us we should be grateful for the privilege of serving them." He turned to face Megan. "We did not leave to punish them. We left because we finally understood that our worth does not depend on their approval. We are valuable not because they say so, but because of what we are. And what we are is a species that deserves better than what they gave us." Megan nodded slowly. She understood now. The galaxy had never valued humanity. So humanity had decided to value itself. And that made all the difference. 5 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways that no one had predicted. The Kreth Dominion, those brutal raiders who had terrorized the frontier, saw an opportunity in humanity's absence. Without human weapons and human soldiers to stop them, the Kreth expanded aggressively. They took Desert 7 first. The planet fell in 3 weeks. The defensive systems that humans had built were useless without humans to maintain them. The Dazari fought bravely, but bravery could not stop plasma cannons. 2 million Dazari died in the conquest. 4 million more became slaves. The Council responded with outrage. Emergency sessions were called. Resolutions were passed. Sanctions were proposed. But the Kreth did not care about Council resolutions. They had learned the truth that the Council had tried to hide for 12,000 years. The Council was weak. Without humanity, the military strength of galactic civilization was a fraction of what it had been. Human ships had been faster. Human weapons had been more powerful. Human soldiers had been more adaptable. The Council had relied on humans to fight their wars, while telling themselves that humans were too primitive to deserve a seat at the table. Now the table was burning, and there was no one to put out the fire. The Kreth took 11 more worlds over the next 3 years. Each conquest was bloodier than the last. The Council argued about how to respond. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to beg the humans to return. But humanity said nothing. The borders remained closed. The silence remained unbroken. On Earth, Daniel Carter sat on the porch of his small cabin by the lake. He was 67 now, fully retired from military service. His hair had gone completely white, and his hand shook slightly when he held his fishing rod. But his mind was still sharp. His granddaughter Katie visited him every summer. She was 12 years old now, curious and bright, full of questions about the galaxy that her grandfather had once served. "Grandpa," she said one afternoon, sitting beside him on the dock, "my teacher says that millions of aliens are suffering because we left." Daniel nodded slowly. "That is true. She says we should help them. She says it is wrong to let people die when we could save them. What do you think?" Katie thought about the question. She was a thoughtful child, not quick to speak. "I think it is sad," she said finally. "I think dying is sad no matter who you are. But I also think that they were mean to us for a long time, and sometimes when people are mean to you, you have to walk away." Daniel smiled. "That is a wise answer. Did walking away make things better for us?" Daniel looked out at the lake. The water was calm and clear. Birds sang in the trees. In the distance, he could see other families enjoying the summer day. Children playing. Parents laughing. A world at peace. "Yes," he said. "It made things much better. We stopped trying to prove ourselves to people who would never accept us. We stopped giving away our gifts to people who did not appreciate them. We focused on building a good life for ourselves. But people are dying. People were dying before, Katie. Human people. Our people. And no one in the galaxy cared. When the Kreth killed 17 colonists on Desert 7, the Council called it a minor incident. When human soldiers died defending alien worlds, the Council told us we should be grateful for the opportunity to serve. He put down his fishing rod and turned to face his granddaughter. Walking away was not about punishment. It was not about revenge. It was about understanding that our time and our energy and our lives are valuable. We deserve to spend them on people who appreciate us. We deserve to build a future for ourselves, not for species that see us as servants." Katie nodded, but her eyes were still troubled. "Will we ever help them again?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. He thought about all the years he had spent in alien space. He thought about the friends he had lost. He thought about the contempt he had endured. "I do not know," he said honestly. "Maybe someday. but not until they understand what they lost. Not until they see us as equals. Far away, on the Calvani homeworld, the death toll from the medicine shortage had reached 5 million. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Families watched their elders fade away. The government had tried everything. They had attempted to synthesize the human compounds. They had searched for alternatives. They had even sent secret missions into human space to try to steal what they needed. Those missions never returned. Speaker Varath had died 2 years ago. He had lived long enough to see the beginning of the collapse, but not long enough to see its full scope. His replacement was a younger Calvani named Sorth, who had been a child when humanity first joined the Council. Sorth had grown up hearing stories about humans. His teachers had described them as primitive but useful. His parents had told him that humans were good workers, but not very intelligent. His government had taught him that the galaxy was better off with humans in their proper place. Now Sorth sat in the speaker's chair and watched civilization crumble. "We must reach them," he said to his advisors. "We must find a way to communicate with humanity." "We have tried," his chief advisor replied. "Every message goes unanswered. Every ship is turned away. They have built a wall around their space, and they will not let anyone through. Then we must find another way. There must be something they want, something they need, something we can offer in exchange for their return." The advisor shook his head. "Speaker, I do not think you understand. They do not want anything from us. That is the problem. For 40 years, we told them they needed us. We told them they could not survive without council membership. We told them they were nothing without our guidance." He paused. "They have spent 5 years proving us wrong. Their economy is stronger than ever. Their technology has advanced beyond what we can understand. Their people are healthy and happy and free. They do not need us. They never needed us. Then why did they stay so long? Because they wanted to belong. Because they believed in cooperation. Because they hoped we would eventually see them as equals." The advisor's voice dropped. "We taught them that hope was foolish. We taught them that we would never accept them. And so they stopped hoping. They stopped caring. They simply walked away." Sorth sat in silence for a long time. Outside his window, he could see the lights of the capital city. Millions of his people lived there. Millions more lived on colonies across 100 worlds. And all of them were slowly learning what the galaxy looked like without humanity in it. It looked smaller. It looked darker. It looked very, very afraid. 10 years after humanity walked out of the council chamber, the Void Plague began. No one knew where it came from. Some said it started on a remote mining colony in the outer systems. Others claimed it was a weapon created by the Kreth. Few whispered that it was punishment from the universe itself for the galaxy's treatment of humanity. Whatever its origin, the plague spread with terrifying speed. It jumped from species to species without discrimination. It traveled along trade routes and refugee paths. It found its way onto ships and stations and planets. Within 3 months, it had reached the core worlds. Within 6 months, it had killed 200 million beings. The Council's scientists worked desperately to find a cure. They studied the plague. They tested treatments. They tried everything their collective knowledge could produce. Nothing worked. The problem was that the plague attacked biological systems in ways that alien science did not fully understand. It exploited weaknesses that human medicine had learned to address centuries ago. The treatments that could save lives existed in human databases, protected behind walls that no alien could breach. Speaker Sorth made his decision on a cold morning in the 10th year of humanity's silence. He would go to Earth. His advisors told him it was foolish. They warned that the humans might capture him. They suggested that he would humiliate himself and his species by begging for help. They reminded him that no council speaker had ever lowered himself in such a way. Sorth listened to all of their objections. Then he boarded a small ship with no guards and no weapons and flew toward human space. The journey took 3 days. When he reached the border, his ship was immediately surrounded by human vessels. They were fast and silent and impossibly advanced. 10 years of isolation had not slowed human progress. If anything, it had accelerated it. A voice came through his communication system. It was calm and professional. Identify yourself and state your purpose. I am Speaker Sorth of the Galactic Council. I have come to speak with the representatives of humanity. There was a long pause. Follow the escort vessels. Do not deviate from the assigned course. Sorth did as he was told. The human ships led him through a series of checkpoints and security stations. He saw defenses that made council technology look primitive. He saw stations and shipyards and colonies that should not have been possible to build in only 10 years. Humanity had not been idle in their isolation. They had been preparing. His ship landed in a city that he did not recognize. It was clean and beautiful, full of green spaces and flowing water. The air smelled fresh. The people walking the streets looked healthy and content. Sorth was escorted to a simple building in the center of the city. He was shown to a conference room with a single table and 2 chairs. And there he waited. 3 days he waited. On the 3rd day, the door opened and a human woman walked in. She was middle-aged with dark hair and a calm expression. She wore simple clothes with no symbols of rank or authority. I am Laura Chun, she said, taking the seat across from him. I have been designated to hear your request. Thank you for seeing me, Sora said. He tried to keep his voice steady. I know that my species has not earned the right to ask anything of humanity. Laura said nothing. She simply waited. Sora took a deep breath. The void plague is killing us. It is killing all of us. Our scientists cannot stop it. Our medicine cannot cure it. We have lost 200 million lives, and our projections suggest billions more will die before it runs its course. He leaned forward. We need your help. We are begging for your help. I am personally begging for your help. Whatever you want in return, whatever price you name, we will pay it. Territory, resources, political power, anything. Lavra studied him for a long moment. Her face showed no triumph, no satisfaction, no pleasure in his desperation. I see, she said finally. Please, Sorth continued. I know what my predecessors did. I know how they treated your people. I cannot undo the past. I cannot erase 40 years of contempt and dismissal. But I can tell you that we have learned. We have changed. We understand now what we failed to understand before. And what is that? That you were never beneath us. That your worth was never ours to judge. That we were fools to treat you as children when you were offering us gifts that we did not deserve. Laura was quiet for a long time. Sorth could hear his own heartbeat in the silence. Then she stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city continued its peaceful existence. Children played in parks. Couples walked hand in hand. Life went on. Speaker Sorth, Lavra said without turning around. Humanity will provide assistance. Our medical teams will be deployed within the week. Our research will be shared with your scientists. The void plague will be stopped. Sorth felt tears forming in his eyes. Relief washed over him like a wave. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. What do you require in return? Name your price. Lavra turned to face him. Her expression was still calm, but there was something deeper in her eyes now. Something that Sorth did not immediately understand. Nothing, she said. We require nothing. I do not understand. We are not doing this for advantage. We are not doing this for power. We are not doing this because you have finally shown us the respect we always deserved." She walked back to the table and looked down at him. "We are doing this because billions of innocent beings are dying, and we have the ability to save them. That is all. That is the only reason. But after everything we did to you, what you did to us changed how we see ourselves. It taught us that our value does not depend on your approval. It freed us from the need to prove ourselves to people who would never accept us." She moved toward the door. "But it did not change who we are. We are a species that helps those in need. We do not help because people deserve it. We do not help because we will be rewarded. We help because it is right." She paused at the threshold. "That is the difference between us, speaker. You can never understand why we shared our gifts so freely. You thought we were naive. You thought we were weak. You thought we were trying to buy acceptance." She shook her head slowly. "We were simply being human, and nothing you did could ever take that away from us." The door closed behind her. Soreth sat alone in the empty room for a very long time. He thought about the history of his species. He thought about the 12,000 years of galactic civilization. He thought about all the wars that had been fought and all the treaties that had been signed. Never in all that time had any species done what humanity had just done. They had been rejected and mocked and dismissed. They had been treated as servants and children. They had every reason to let the galaxy burn. And instead, they chose to save it. Not for power. Not for revenge. Not for recognition. Simply because it was right. Soreth finally understood the lesson that humanity had been trying to teach all along. True strength is not measured by what you take. It is measured by what you give when you own nothing. And by that measure, humanity was the strongest species the galaxy had ever known.